DJ Scream, heavy in the streets.
We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood. We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood.
Hood rich.
Get it out the mud.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And welcome back. We have some more appetizers for you this evening. Some more appetizers, and I'm talking about UFC 328. So that's UFC 328. Khamzat Chimaev versus Sean Strickland, and that happened this past Saturday. So this was May 9th, 2026. At the Prudential Center in New York, New Jersey, United States, with an attendance of 17,783 and total gate 17.55 million at the gate. So good numbers there. A lot of in the attendance. For the attendance, you usually see about 15,000, but they were obviously able to fit in a good number in the Prudential Center. So this card, it was the huge buildup between Sean Strickland and Khamzat Chimaev, and I could say that it might have been a little bit of disappointment or a little bit underwhelming, and that's more just the main event. The main event, the card in itself and a whole was good, but I maybe would have wanted a little bit more from that main event, but we'll get into that more when we go through our previous picks and through the main card. But before we do that, let's go over the prelims a little bit, the early prelims and the standard prelims. So in the early prelims, it was pretty uneventful, but you did have a middleweight Basinger defeat Dijon Santos at the 412 mark of the third round, and he put him to sleep with a rear naked choke. So DeJordan Santos, he didn't tap out. He went to sleep there, and then the rest were just kind of all unanimous decisions. But the standard prelims, wow, there was 4 fights on the standard prelim card, and there were all of them were finishes, three submissions and one TKO punches. But we'll go over those real quick here, and then we'll get on to the main card. But yeah, so the lightweight, the first fight on the standard prelims, you had a lightweight bout between veteran Jim Miller versus Jared Gordon, and Jim Miller defeated Jared Gordon at the 329 mark of the first round with a submission guillotine choke. So that was nice to see Jim Miller at his advanced age still performing at a high level. And I think some of those interviews, some of the comments that he had in the pre-fight interviews with during the weigh-in show, he said as long as he doesn't suffer some serious injury, he plans on fighting until he's 50 years old. And hell, from the performances that he keeps putting on every couple months or so, I don't see why not. Like he said, as long as there's no serious injury, I'm good with continuing to see him fight. And then on the second fight on the standard prelims, you had a lightweight bout between Grant Dawson versus Mateus Rebecki, and Grant Dawson got the submission over Mateus at the 442 mark of the third round. So close to a buzzer beater type of win, a horn beater type of win there. And that was a rear naked choke submission. So that was an impressive, just in the fashion of getting it so late in the fight. Is always kind of heart stopping, kind of exciting. And then on the welterweight, and then the third fight on the standard prelims, so like the co-main event of the standard prelims, you had Yaroslav Amosov defeating Joel Alvarez by submission at the 113 mark of the second round, and that was a submission, and that was arm triangle choke. So that was impressive. Sometimes you don't see those type of submissions quite as often as the rear naked choke, guillotine choke, head and arm triangle choke, which I guess that is an arm triangle choke, but yeah, so that was an impressive submission there as well. And then the main event of the standard prelims, and kind of what we mentioned about this fighter during the prediction show of how he's just a physical freak and just a freak of an athlete, and just looking at him, he looks like he's chiseled out of stone. And in his last fight was the first fight that ever went to decision, so it was nice seeing that in his last fight that he could go to decision. But he got back on track of just completely stoning people and knocking people out. So in the middleweight bout between Ataba Gutierrez versus Ozzy Diaz, you had Ataba Gutierrez TKOing Ozzy Diaz at the 110 mark of the second round, and that was just a brutal overhand right that just completely unblocked at all by Ozzy Diaz, and that put him out like instantly. And as the falling back and the whiplash from him falling down was as bad as the overhand right, and then he caught 2 or 3 stray like hammer fists at the end. So that was a brutal knockout by Gutierrez. So yeah, we got everything we wanted from definitely from that main event of the prelims, and just it's the standard prelims in general was exciting with 4 stoppages on 4 fights. So yeah, so that right there helped this card. If anything, like the main event, the main card could have maybe even fell off a little bit more than it did, and still would have been a great card just because of the standard prelims being so awesome with all those submissions and the devastating knockout that you got by Gutierrez. All right. So that's the standard prelims and the early prelims. Let's get on to our picks and get into the main event here. So, can I get a menu? And so the first fight on the card, we had this is a catchweight bout of 160 because Jeremy Stephens missed weight in weigh-in, so missed weight and ended up giving 30% of his purse to King Green, and going into this fight and seeing this fight when it came out as a fight for this card and being on the main card, my question why is Jeremy Stephens even back in the UFC? Honestly, with all due respect, well, why is he even back in the UFC? Seeing how he'd only won one fight in his last 10 fights, and hadn't won. I think he was on a 2-fight losing streak coming back to the UFC. So I kind of felt like this is kind of like old guy matched up against old guy, and you're wanting to see basically an old guy get either knocked out or choked out or arm snapped off. That's just kind of what it felt like. And King Green, obviously, at both of these fighters' advanced stage, King Green is obviously the better fighter and obviously in better shape because he can actually make weight, unlike Jeremy Stephens. And so I picked King Green to win this fight, but I actually thought he was going to do it by knockout. But he ended up doing it by submission. But it was just a complete master class by King Green. If he wanted to finish him with TKO strikes and ground and pound, he probably could have, but he went for the submission, and he was able to get Jeremy Stephens out of there at the 420 mark of the first round, and that was a submission by rear naked choke. So that was just really another impressive performance of King Green. And kind of the funny thing, at the end of the fight, King Green had some choice words, I guess, for Dana White, just in regards to some of the last impressive fights that he's had and some of the crazy finishes that he's had, or at least in his opinion that he's had. He said that Dana White stole stole like the fighter bonuses from him, and he was just telling Dana White like, "Give me a fighter bonus," and that's just kind of just coincidental and kind of funny that he ended up not getting. He didn't end up getting a bonus award, the $100,000 bonus, even though he's literally calling Dana White out for it. And maybe that attributed to why he didn't, but I think it probably also attributed to why, yeah, he got the finish, but not really that impressive just because of the opponent that he's fighting in a Jeremy Stevens that should be in other Division 2, Division 3. Like if he's still going to fight, needs to be in other promotions, not in the top of the game in the UFC. So maybe that's why, because yeah, it's impressive with the stoppage, but over the opponent that he did, not that impressive, especially a guy that can't even make weight. So that was the first fight on the card. And so I guess we got that pick kind of half right. We picked King Green to win, but not by way of submission. I thought he was going to get the knockout, but it was there. If he wanted to get the knockout, he could have. He was just owning Jeremy Stevens everywhere in this fight, on the ground and standing in the striking game. All right, so now then, on to the second fight on the card. We have a welterweight bout between John Brady versus Joaquin Buckley, and this was really the only fight on the card that I got exactly right with the pick. So I picked beforehand. I picked Sean Brady to defeat Joaquin Buckley by way of unanimous decision, and then that's what happened. But I didn't think it was going to be such a dominant performance by Sean Brady, and just I guess kind of a lackluster performance by Joaquin Buckley. But that was more to Sean Buckley never letting Joaquin Buckley get off. You know, he just never could get the striking game going, and the fight was on the ground pretty much the majority of the fight. And so that ended up being a decision victory by Sean Brady. And it was the man, it must have been the second and the third round where a couple of these refs actually ranked it or judged it 10-8 in 2 rounds. And I've never really, that doesn't happen very often where a fighter loses multiple rounds by 10-8 rounds. But it ended up being a decision 30-25, 30-25, and then 30-27. So one of the judges wasn't quite as impressed by Sean Brady's performance as the two others. But yeah, that fight was just mostly on the ground, and Joaquin Buckley just getting ground and pound. And in the first round, Sean Brady did attempt a submission. He tried to go for a Kimura, but he wasn't able to secure it. So then he just basically rode out Joaquin Buckley, rode him out through the fight, and landed enough ground and pound for the ref to never stand them back up. And then when like the last minute of the third round, he just like unloaded, just nonstop, nothing serious enough, obviously, to get the fight stopped. But he was just, most of it was blocked by Joaquin Buckley, but he was just unloaded, emptied the gas tank with some ground and pound and some choice elbows in there on Joaquin Buckley. And Joaquin Buckley just looked bad in this fight in regards to not being able to stop any of the shots or any of the takedowns, and then just not. It didn't even seem like he really was trying to even get back up. It just seemed like he was kind of accepting his position, and that was another like masterclass performance by Sean Brady, who was number 6 going into this fight. And I think Joaquin Buckley was ranked around the ninth as a welterweight, and Sean Brady, he's asking for somebody in the top 5 at least, if not for a title shot. But yeah, I agree with that for Sean Brady. That yeah, I think he needs someone in the top 5, seeing how he's ranked 6th in himself. So that was the only fight that we picked right in this card in regards to the pick of the fighter and by way of method. So now we get a little it gets a little rough here for me in regards to my picks here on these last 3 fights. But let's get into it. So this is the third fight on the main card. We had a heavyweight bout between Alexander Volkov versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. And I picked Waldo Cortez Acosta to knock Alexander Volkov out, even though it hadn't happened a lot in his career. And Alexander Volkov definitely is one of the top one of the top heavyweights in the UFC, even though it is a shallow division. But you're thinking Waldo Acosta is coming off three knockout wins and is on a three-fight winning streak, and is a little bit younger than Alexander Volkov. But man, Waldo Acosta, he couldn't figure out really the distance, the length. Alexander Volkov is just so much taller and arms so much longer. Waldo Acosta just had a hard time getting inside and landing anything. And the closest chance of the knockout actually came by Alexander Volkov. Landed a good shot on Waldo Cortez Acosta in the first round and had Waldo wobbling, had him wobbling there for a second, but he was able to regain his composure, and what weren't really too many real significant like almost fight ending strikes really landed throughout the whole fight, and the fight was mainly standing. They stayed standing for the majority of the fight. And Waldo Cortez Acosta, he got a little more kind of reckless, kind of realizing that he can't kind of try to judge the distance of Alexander Volkov. And like in the second and third round, he was just kind of bum rushing in there and just kind of trying to land a couple shots. And just if you were just going off of damage, it looked like Alexander Volkov had a lot more damage. Like his nose was busted up and had a couple cuts on his face. But the refs or the judges didn't judge it that way because it ended up being a decision, a unanimous decision, three rounds, five-minute rounds, a total 15-minute fight, and that ended up being a decision unanimous 30, 27, 29, 28, and 29, 28. So I imagine for those 29, 28, 29, 28s, those judges must have given Waldo Cortez Acosta either the second or the third round, I assume. But yeah, so that fight didn't go the way I thought, just in regards to, yeah, not just in regards to the fighter, but I was thinking someone was going to get knocked out or someone was going to get stopped here. So that was a little disappointing. That adds kind of a little bit to the disappointment. You have two, top ranked heavyweights that are knockout artists, great strikers. You think someone's going to sleep. You want to see someone in the heavyweight division put another guy to sleep, knock someone's head off, and you just didn't get that. Close though, because Alexander Volkov did have Waldo wobbling for a minute. All right, now then, on to the co-main event. We have a flyweight championship bout between Joshua Van, the champion, versus Tatsuro Taira, the challenger. And so this feels like this fight kind of secured Joshua Van as the real flyweight champion. Like I think a lot of people thought it's uh, kind of a cartoonish, not kind of, should have been labeled more of like an interim flyweight champion, just in the way Alexander Pantoja lost to him by falling down and breaking his arm. But having this impressive victory over Tatsuro Taira, I think helps a lot of people's opinion on that now. And I originally picked Tatsuro Taira to win this fight. I thought he was going to knock Joshua Van out, and I should know better than picking these Japanese fighters or these guys coming over from other promotions. Even though Tatsuro Taira has had multiple fights and multiple finishes in the UFC, but there hasn't ever been a Japanese champion for a reason, apparently, but still put up a very impressive fight. And so I picked Tatsuro Taira to get the knockout. And Tatsuro Taira, it looked like if he was going to win this fight, it wasn't going to be by way of knockout. It was more likely going to be just taking Joshua Van down and beating him up with the ground and pound and maybe getting a submission because that it was a pretty impressive performance by Tatsuro Taira in the first round, where he took Joshua Van down and held him down for the majority of the round, landing some ground and pound and just kind of half-heartedly, kind of attempting a couple submissions, but never really getting anything. But just clearly, he won the first round. But man, that was about it. After that, it was just Joshua Van was able to stop the majority of Tatsuro Taira's takedown attempts after that, uh, and was the better striker, clearly the better striker when they were standing. And yeah, so Tatsuro Taira just kind of took a beating and what wasn't able to really do much as do same in the round as he did like in any of the other rounds as he did in the first round. I think it was in the fourth round was the only chance where it looked like Tatsuro Taira maybe had a chance to secure a triangle choke on Joshua Van, but he was never able to completely lock his legs together, lock his foot underneath his knee there, underneath his leg. So he's never able to lock it in completely. But I think that was in the fourth round where Tatsuro Taira was actually able to secure the takedown again in the fight. But Tatsuro Taira ended up getting knocked out in this fight at the 132 mark of the fifth round. So it was another one of those fights. You get the late finish, which is always impressive and definitely gains respect to Joshua Van. But yeah, that came from a front kick to the body that like completely like stunned Tatsuro Taira, like he froze up from it because obviously hit him in the solar plexus, probably knocked the wind out of him, and then he caught like one like kind of hook punch that kind of sent him kind of flying back and against the cage, and he kind of fell down. And yeah, the ref jumped in there pretty quickly, and it looked like Tatsuro Taira regained consciousness and awareness to where he was upset that it was stopped. At least in his opinion, felt a little early, and how crazy the fight had been going, and how it looked like Tatsuro Taira was like just kind of like a machine, just kept taking so much of a beating from Joshua Van. His face was just like a crimson mask majority of the rounds between rounds where they were having to clean it off and just looked so tough. And he came back to life and was complaining to the ref that it was an early stoppage. But I think in reality, a younger fighter like Tatsuro Taira, only 26 years old, I think it does him more good to have had that stopped a little early, a little early, less in his opinion. But yeah, that was a great fight. There was some back and forth, but Joshua Van obviously clearly won, getting the stoppage. All right, so now then on to the main event. So this is the main event of UFC 328. So we have a middleweight championship bout between Khamzat Chimaev, the champion, versus the defending his belt against Sean Strickland. And so I picked Khamzat Chimaev to win this fight. I thought he was going to win this fight like relatively easy, like pretty much his majority of his whole career, and just uh, be able to take Sean Strickland down relatively easy, and eventually get a submission, probably some sort of choke, uh, definitely a rear naked choke or a head and arm triangle choke. The kind of his go-to submissions. But man, it was kind of similar to the Joshua Van Tatsuro Taira fight in regards to Khamzat Chimaev was able to take Sean Strickland down in the first round and held him down for the majority of the round, but and clearly won the first round. But after that, he seemed to have a hard time taking Sean Strickland down after that, and really it seemed like he kind of abandoned that after the second round where he tried it was I don't it was just a failed shot and a takedown attempt on Sean Strickland, and Sean Strickland just kind of like brushed him off, and then you see Khamzat Chimaev like pull guard. I thought he was going to get finished there when he pulled guard, and he looked like a dead fish when he kind of just fell onto his back, and Sean Strickland took advantage of being able to get on top there for a little while, but didn't stay on it. I think after a while, Sean Strickland stood up and let him get back up. And to say that Sean Strickland like clearly won this fight, little hard to agree with that, even though Hamzat did look terrible in the second round. But after he kind of threw the game plan of trying to take Sean Strickland down, he was just kind of coming forward like nonstop, like the Terminator. While Sean Strickland was just had like a jab for him. Had like that's pretty much all Sean Strickland did was throw a jab and did a great job in regards to stopping the the takedown and getting back up anytime he actually did get taken down. So Sean Strickland, I mean, I felt as if you had to be the champ, you had to beat the champ. But man, that seems like a, a like an old reference phrase now. It's a phrase and uh, thing that people believe in. It feels like that's just been thrown out the window. That you have to have a dominant performance. If you don't get the finish, either submission or knockout, you have to have a dominant performance over the chance to win to win to become the champ. And I don't think that was that dominant performance by Sean Strickland. I don't think it was good enough to become the champ, but he ended up winning. He ended up beating Khamzat Chimaev by way, at least it was by way of split decision. And it was a 47, 48, 48, 47, 48, 47. So that was all 5 rounds, 5 minute rounds, a 25-minute fight. And so we mentioned at the start of the podcast how we felt like this card was a little bit disappointing and a little underwhelming just from the build up for the main event, not the rest of the card. The rest of the card, overall, other than maybe the heavyweight fight on the main card was great, especially with how great the prelims were. But man, it's clear. It was pretty clear in going into like the third and fourth round. It was pretty clear that the hate and the anger and the dislike between Sean Strickland and Khamzat Chimaev was just is formulated. It was fake. It wasn't real. Maybe a little bit of it was real, but not to the point where they need like armed guards at the press conference and armed guards at the weigh-ins and like half a dozen security in the ring before they even start the fight, because hell, they towards the third, fourth, fifth round, you had them like hugging before the start of the round, and even had, what was it, the fifth round, I think, the start of the fifth round, he even had Khamzat Chimaev say I love you. He actually said I love you to Sean Strickland, and even after losing his belt, he's 15-0 and gets his first loss, and he's, maybe it's good sportsmanship, but after the build up and the hate and the vitriol that you felt that there was, he's putting the belt on him afterwards. So yeah, that was phony and that was disappointing. And to say it's the first time something like that's happened would be a lie. Like that happens a lot of times, honestly, when you get the fight is built up to be so great, and the fighters and the dislike and the distaste that the fighters have for each other. And then it ends up being like a technical fight, or they're too afraid to engage one another or something. When you think with the stuff that they've said to each other, you're gonna thinking they're gonna just come out windmilling each other, and that really wasn't it. But I will say, Khamzat Chimaev, he tried to take Sean Strickland down. He tried to stay to his game plan, but it got thrown out the window. But he was coming forward and just kind of like we said, like a Terminator, just kind of going through the constant jabs that Sean Strickland had for him, and that there were, I don't think it really caused that much damage. I don't think either one of them beside looked that bad in regards to there was a chance of them getting knocked out or anything, other than, like I said, it looked Khamzat Chimaev, he looked terrible in that second round where he just kind of got shoved off of a takedown attempt and just kind of tried to pull guard on Sean Strickland. But like we said, overall the card was really good, and if anyone disliked it or would say that it was a bad card, you can just look at the prelims. The standard prelims was great, and we'll get into the bonuses here. You had the fight of the night was on the main card. So let's get into the Well, a lot of people have talked about Sean Strickland and Khamzat Chimaev maybe having a rematch now after that fight, but I think the whole issue with Khamzat Chimaev looking so terrible during weigh-ins is because a lot of people said that he tried to like bulk up uh, to like 230 pounds to where it looked like he was gonna, maybe not even going to defend his belt at middleweight and was just going to go and fight Yari Prohaschek for a, a title eliminator type of bout at 205. So I find it a little hard that to believe with just the terrible looking weight cut Hazmat Chimaev had. And obviously, it looks like they're buddies. Look like Sean Strickland and Hamzat Chimaev are buddies. They we all got played. We all got played by that. And the funny thing, just from you see tweets and stuff, is Dracus Duplessis DDP because he's beaten Sean Strickland twice and has lost. But has lost Hamzat Chimaev, so clearly MMA math didn't add up in that regards. But he was saying after that win and by Sean Strickland and the loss by Hazmat Chimaev. Well, I guess I'm the middleweight champion again, seeing how he has beat Sean Strickland twice already. So be interesting to see how that plays out and what Hamzat Chimaev does if he moves up to 205 or if we're going to get a rematch, a sequel to this fight. But so that's UFC 228. Let's go through the bonuses here real quick because we mentioned how it felt a little bit like King Green was calling out Dana White for $100,000 bonus, a performance of the night bonus, and then didn't end up getting one. But there were some other guys that did receive the bonuses. So fight of the night was clearly Joshua Van versus Tatsuro Taira, where Joshua Van successfully defended his belt, and like I said, I feel like people probably respect him as flyweight champion again, and I would say the clear fight for this his next fight would I would hope to be a healthy Alexander Pantoja. And then the performance of the night, we had two of those. You had Yaroslav Amosov and Jim Miller both had performance of the nights for their submission victories. Jim Miller's guillotine choke over Jared Gordon, and then Yaroslav's submission arm triangle choke over Alvarez. So that's UFC 328. So that's UFC 328 Khamzat Chimaev versus Sean Strickland. And like I said, other than the main event, which I think it got played up maybe a little bit more than what we expected. We all always expect these fights that feel like they're going to be like all-time fights just because of the back and forth between fighters pre-fight. They usually fall short of what you expect them to be. Kind of like Colby Covington getting dominated by Carl Usman, and same uh, uh, with Conor McGregor versus some of the guys that he's had big controversial and crazy pre-fights, press conferences and stuff, and lose. So let's look at UFC Freedom 250 here is the next pay-per-view card, premium live event that we have, and this is June 14th, 2026 at the White House, and that's Washington D.C., United States. So I just still hard to believe that they're actually having a major sporting event at the White House. I wonder how often that's happened, or if in the past that's ever happened. But man, it's a good card. The main card is already set, even though this is I guess it's a couple months away now, or just a month, I guess. So it's May 12th. It's May 12th now, and that's on the 14th. So yeah, about just a little more than a month away. But we'll go through these fights that are kind of secured already as the main event, I guess. I don't know if there'll be really prelims for this card. I think this card actually starts at like 7 p.m. Central Time and 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So it's even an hour earlier than your usual prelim cards, and from changing the dates. But you got Diego Lopez versus Steve Garcia, Bo Nichols versus Kyle Dukakis, Mauricio Ruffy versus Michael Chandler, Josh Hulkett versus Derek Lewis, Sean O'Malley versus Aman Zahibi. And then you got titles, the co-main event and the main event. You have a I guess a vacant belt for the heavyweight title for Alex Pereira versus Cyril Gahn, and then you have, I guess, a unifying champion trying to unify a lightweight belt, because you have Ilya Taporia, the champion, versus Justin Gaethje, the interim champion. So, man, that's a pretty exciting card. I'm interested to see how this plays out a little bit more. If there's more fights going to be added, or if there's going to be any early prelims or standard prelims. But man, if this card holds together and what it is now, it should be good. It should be definitely exciting, and I want there to be nice to finally have a heavyweight champion for the first time in feels like a year or more. But anyway, so that's UFC 328, and we'll probably see you back here in a month for UFC Freedom 250. But anyways, I think that's about all I have for you. So can I get a check, please?